My name is Daniel Wheatfield. I am 41 years old, and I work as a prairie camping coordinator for Kansas State Parks, managing camping facilities throughout Kansas's vast grassland regions, where I've learned that the endless horizon and complete isolation of prairie camping can drive people to psychological breakdown when combined with supernatural forces that feed off human mental deterioration. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are watching from, please. I've been coordinating prairie camping for 15 years across Kansas's state park system, helping families and outdoor enthusiasts experience the unique beauty of grassland environments, where the sky stretches endlessly in all directions and where human civilization seems insignificant against the immensity of the Great Plains. This happened last August while monitoring camping activities at Tallgrass Prairie National Preserve, near Strong City, where I was investigating reports of campers experiencing severe psychological distress after spending multiple days camping in areas where nothing breaks the endless expanse of grass and sky. The preserve protects 11,000 acres of tallgrass prairie that once covered 170 million acres of North America, providing visitors with opportunities to experience the psychological impact of living in landscapes where early settlers often suffered mental breakdown from the overwhelming isolation and vastness. The reported incidents began with the Morrison family from Colorado, experienced campers who had requested a multi-day primitive camping experience in the most isolated section of the preserve, where they could experience true prairie solitude without any structures or human development visible in any direction. Tom and Janet Morrison, along with their teenage children, had specifically wanted to understand what early prairie settlers experienced when they lived completely surrounded by grass that extended to the horizon without trees, hills, or any landmarks to provide psychological orientation. Around the second day of their camping experience, the Morrison family began reporting unusual psychological effects that seemed related to the endless grassland environment, but that were more severe than normal disorientation associated with prairie camping. Janet Morrison described feeling like the grassland was watching their campsite with malevolent intelligence, as if the prairie itself had developed consciousness and was studying their family with predatory interest that increased with each hour they remained isolated in the endless grass. The children reported that the grass around their campsite seemed to move independently of wind patterns, creating wave-like motions that appeared to be circling their camping area with deliberate purpose rather than responding to natural atmospheric conditions. Around the third day, the psychological effects escalated when the Morrison family began experiencing auditory hallucinations that seemed to be coming from the grassland itself, rather than from any identifiable source within their camping area or the surrounding preserve. Tom Morrison described hearing voices that sounded like conversations between multiple people discussing the family's camping activities and personal information. But the voices seemed to be generated by the grass itself rustling in patterns that created speech, like sounds. The children reported hearing their names being called from different directions in the grassland. But when they looked toward the sources of the voices, they saw only endless grass stretching to the horizon, with no people or structures that could explain the vocal phenomena. Around the fourth day, the family's psychological state deteriorated significantly when they began experiencing visual hallucinations that challenged their ability to distinguish between reality and prairie. Induced mental disturbance. Janet Morrison reported seeing figures moving through the grass at the edge of their vision. But when she turned to look directly at the movement, nothing was visible except the endless grassland that provided no concealment where people could hide. The figures appeared to be conducting surveillance of the campsite, maintaining positions just beyond clear observation, while demonstrating obvious intelligence and coordination that suggested organized observation rather than hallucinations caused by prairie isolation. Around the fifth day, the Morrison family's camping experience reached crisis level when they began experiencing complete disorientation about direction, distance, and their location within the preserve, despite using GPS navigation and maintaining detailed camping logs. The family reported that familiar landmarks seemed to change position overnight, that distances between recognizable features varied from day to day, and that their campsite seemed to be moving through the grassland, despite remaining in the same physical location. Most disturbing was their growing conviction that the prairie was actively manipulating their perception of space and time to keep them disoriented and prevent them from leaving the grassland environment where they were becoming increasingly vulnerable to psychological manipulation. When I arrived at their campsite on the 6th day to conduct a routine check on their extended camping permit, I found the Morrison family in severe psychological distress, with symptoms that exceeded normal prairie camping disorientation and required immediate intervention. The family was huddled together in their tent, refusing to venture outside during daylight hours and reporting that the grassland had become actively hostile toward their presence, with demonstrations of intelligence that challenged their understanding of natural environments. Tom Morrison described feeling like the family was being digested by the prairie through psychological processes designed to break down their mental defenses and incorporate their consciousness into some kind of grassland collective intelligence. The children showed signs of severe anxiety and reported that they could no longer trust their sensory perceptions because the grassland was manipulating what they saw and heard to create confusion and prevent rational thinking about their situation. Most concerning was the family's shared belief that leaving the campsite would trigger some kind of prairie-based attack that would be worse than remaining in their current state of psychological siege by grassland entities. I coordinated immediate evacuation of the Morrison family, despite their reluctance to leave the campsite. But during the evacuation process, we all experienced phenomena that confirmed their accounts of supernatural prairie activity. The grassland around their campsite showed movement patterns that contradicted wind conditions, creating wave-like motions that seemed designed to disorient travelers and make navigation difficult, despite clear GPS readings and visible landmarks. Most disturbing was the acoustic environment during evacuation, with the grass generating sounds that resembled conversation, laughter, and commentary about our movements through the preserve, as if the grassland was providing running commentary on our escape attempts. The Morrison family required psychological counseling after their prairie camping experience and reported lasting effects, including agoraphobia, an inability to spend time in open spaces without experiencing panic attacks triggered by their grassland camping trauma. Investigation into similar incidents revealed that psychological breakdown associated with extended prairie camping had been documented throughout Kansas history, with reports dating back to early settlement periods when pioneers experienced mental deterioration attributed to prairie madness. Traditional knowledge from Native American communities described the tallgrass prairie as containing spiritual forces that could overwhelm human consciousness during extended exposure, particularly when people attempted to live within grassland environments without proper cultural preparation and spiritual protection. According to tribal teachings, successful prairie residents required understanding that grassland environments possessed collective consciousness that could interact with human mental states in ways that exceeded normal environmental psychology. I continue coordinating prairie camping because it provides unique educational experiences about Great Plains ecosystems and history. But I now include warnings about extended isolation camping and maintain enhanced monitoring for psychological distress during multi-day prairie camping experiences. Current camping protocols include limits on isolation camping duration, mandatory daily check-ins for extended stays, and psychological support resources for campers who experience prairie-induced mental disturbance during grassland camping adventures. Some aspects of Kansas prairie environments can overwhelm human psychological defenses during extended camping experiences, and grassland isolation, combined with supernatural prairie consciousness, creates mental health risks that exceed normal outdoor recreation safety considerations. My name is Rebecca Stormwatch. I am 36 years old, and I work as an emergency management coordinator for southwestern Kansas, specializing in tornado safety and emergency shelter operations during severe weather events, where I've discovered that some underground storm shelters contain supernatural entities that view tornado emergencies as hunting opportunities to trap vulnerable families. I've been working severe weather emergency response for 13 years across Kansas tornado corridors, coordinating shelter operations and emergency evacuations during the violent storm seasons that make Kansas one of America's most tornado-prone regions. This happened last May during a severe weather outbreak that produced multiple tornadoes across a 50-mile area of rural Kansas, forcing dozens of farming families and campers to seek emergency shelter in underground storm cellars and community-safe rooms. The weather emergency began around 3 p.m. when the National Weather Service issued tornado warnings for Kiowa County, with Doppler radar showing supercell thunderstorms capable of producing EF-3 or stronger tornadoes with devastating wind speeds and extensive damage potential. Emergency protocols required immediate evacuation of all outdoor recreation areas, including campgrounds, RV parks, and primitive camping sites, where families and tourists were extremely vulnerable to tornado winds that could turn camping equipment into deadly projectiles. The Peterson family was camping at the Sand Hills State Park when tornado warnings were issued, forcing them to abandon their campsite and seek emergency shelter at the nearest designated safe facility, an underground community storm shelter located about 2 miles from their camping area. Tom and Lisa Peterson, along with their 2 young children, reached the community shelter, along with 8 other families who had evacuated from various camping and recreational areas throughout the tornado warning zone. The underground shelter was designed to accommodate up to 50 people during tornado emergencies and was equipped with emergency supplies, communication equipment, and reinforced construction capable of protecting occupants from direct tornado impacts. Around 4 p.m., as the severe weather system approached the shelter location, families settled into the underground facility, expecting to remain there for 1 to 2 hours until the tornado threat passed and emergency personnel could confirm safe conditions for evacuation. The initial shelter experience proceeded normally, with families maintaining calm behavior and children adapting well to the underground environment, despite anxiety about the severe weather occurring above their protected location. Around 5 p.m., as tornado activity intensified in the area above the shelter, families began reporting unusual phenomena inside the underground facility that seemed unrelated to the severe weather emergency, but that created additional psychological stress during an already frightening situation. Several children reported seeing figures moving in the darker areas of the shelter that appeared to be people, but whose behavior and appearance were wrong in ways that created immediate fear and discomfort among the young shelter occupants. The figures seemed to be observing the families with predatory interest, while remaining in shadowy areas of the shelter, where they couldn't be clearly seen by adults who were focused on monitoring weather conditions and maintaining order during the emergency. Around 6 p.m., the supernatural activity in the shelter escalated when families began experiencing equipment malfunctions and communication failures that isolated them from emergency services during a critical period of the tornado outbreak. The shelter's emergency radio lost contact with county emergency management. The backup communication systems failed to function properly, and the emergency lighting began flickering in patterns that seemed designed to create maximum psychological distress among trapped families. Most concerning was that the equipment failures occurred in sequences that suggested deliberate sabotage rather than random mechanical problems caused by severe weather or power outages affecting the broader emergency response system. Around 7 p.m., families realized they were effectively trapped in the underground shelter, not only by the tornado emergency above ground, but also by supernatural entities that seemed to be using the severe weather situation as cover for predatory activities against helpless victims. The Peterson children reported feeling invisible hands touching them in the darkness and hearing whispered voices encouraging them to separate from their parents and explore deeper areas of the underground shelter where the shadowy figures seemed to be concentrated. Both their families reported similar experiences with their children being targeted by entities that demonstrated knowledge of child psychology and used tornado-related fears to manipulate young shelter occupants into behavior that would increase their vulnerability to supernatural predation. Around 8 p.m., despite ongoing tornado warnings, several families decided that remaining in the shelter with hostile entities posed greater risks than facing potential severe weather above ground during what should have been their safe evacuation window. But when families attempted to exit the shelter, They discovered that the facility's security systems had been manipulated to prevent departure, with electronic locks, engaging and manual override systems failing to respond to normal operational procedures. The entrapment created panic among families who realized they were prisoners in an underground facility with supernatural entities that had used severe weather emergencies to isolate and capture vulnerable victims during tornado season. Around 9 p.m., working together, the shelter occupants managed to override the facility's security systems and evacuate to surface conditions, despite ongoing severe weather warnings that made above-ground exposure extremely dangerous. Some entities in Kansas utilize severe weather emergencies to trap vulnerable families in underground facilities during tornado season, and they've learned to use weather-related equipment failures to isolate victims during the most dangerous storm events when escape would be nearly impossible. My name is Frank Cornfield. I am 47 years old, and I work as a rural campground manager for Kansas State Parks, overseeing primitive camping facilities throughout Kansas's agricultural regions, where I've discovered that some camping areas located near active farming operations experience supernatural activity that involves systematic manipulation of recreational vehicles and camping trailers during overnight stays. I've been managing rural campgrounds for 18 years across Kansas's diverse agricultural landscape, maintaining primitive camping facilities that provide outdoor recreation opportunities for families seeking to experience the Great Plains environment while staying near working farms and agricultural operations. This happened throughout the summer camping season while managing the Smoky Hill River Campground near Ellsworth, a primitive camping facility located adjacent to active wheat and corn farming operations, where overnight campers frequently reported that their RVs and camping trailers had been moved significant distances during nighttime hours. The campground serves families seeking authentic Kansas agricultural tourism experiences, with camping sites positioned to provide views of working farms while maintaining respectful distances from agricultural operations that continue year-round production activities. The facility accommodates various types of camping equipment, including tent camping, RV camping, and camping trailers, with basic amenities including restroom facilities, picnic areas, and access to the Smoky Hill River for fishing and recreational activities. The first incident occurred in June when the Williams family from Missouri reported that their 25-foot camping trailer had been moved approximately 200 yards from their assigned campsite to a location near the river, despite the fact that their truck remained parked in its original position with the trailer hitch disconnected. According to Jim Williams, the family had properly stabilized their camping trailer using standard procedures, including deploying stabilizing jacks, setting wheel chocks, and disconnecting from their towing vehicle before settling in for their planned 3-day Kansas agricultural tourism camping experience. When the Williams family woke on their second morning, they discovered their camping trailer positioned in a completely different area of the campground, with all stabilization equipment neatly stacked beside the trailer, as if professional movers had relocated their equipment during the night. The trailer had been moved without creating any tire tracks, damage to the surrounding grass, or disturbance to nearby camping equipment, suggesting movement that defied normal physics and mechanical transportation methods. 2 weeks later, the Thompson family from Colorado experienced an even more dramatic trailer relocation when their camping trailer was found positioned perfectly parallel to corn rows in the adjacent agricultural field, approximately half a mile from their original campsite. The Thompsons' camping trailer had been placed with precision that aligned exactly with the farming operation's cultivation patterns, as if whatever had moved their equipment possessed detailed knowledge of agricultural practices and field management systems. Most disturbing was that the trailer had been positioned without disturbing any of the growing corn plants, suggesting movement through or above the crop field, without creating the damage that would result from normal mechanical transportation methods. Throughout July and August, trailer movement incidents increased in frequency and complexity, with camping families reporting increasingly sophisticated relocations that demonstrated intelligence and specific knowledge about both recreational vehicle operation and agricultural activities. The Martinez family found their camping trailer had been moved to a position that created a perfect viewing platform for observing farming equipment operations, positioned with military precision to provide optimal sightlines across multiple agricultural fields. The Chen family discovered their trailer had been relocated to the exact center of a harvested wheat field and oriented to align with compass directions, creating a geometric display that suggested mathematical intelligence and understanding of surveying principles. The Davis family reported that their camping trailer had been moved to a location near farm buildings and configured to demonstrate various RV systems. Slide, outs extended, awning deployed, and interior systems activated as if someone was conducting detailed study of recreational vehicle technology. What made all the relocations particularly mysterious was that families reported no sounds, vibrations, or other disturbances during the night hours when their trailers were being moved, despite the fact that RV relocation typically requires significant mechanical noise and equipment operation. Security equipment installed at the campground failed to record any of the trailer movements, with surveillance cameras showing camping trailers in their original positions throughout entire night periods, but revealing relocated equipment during morning reviews. Investigation into the movement patterns revealed that relocated trailers were always positioned in locations that demonstrated understanding of agricultural operations, recreational vehicle systems, or geometric principles that suggested highly intelligent rather than random transportation. Current campground protocols include enhanced vehicle security recommendations, documentation procedures for relocation incidents, and alternative camping options for families who prefer to avoid areas where supernatural equipment manipulation has been documented. Some entities in Kansas agricultural regions demonstrate systematic interest in human camping technology and use their supernatural abilities to study recreational vehicles through overnight relocation and examination that serves their research purposes while creating confusion and concern among camping families.